How do you estimate shipping expenses? So first of all, if you have physical items to deliver, there are 5 things you need to know. First of all, it would be great if you could charge expenses after the campaign. Some people don't do that. There are reasons, and I'll try to explain why I think it's better. The second one is that if you already have an idea of what your thing is gonna weight, try to estimate those weights as precisely as possible. All the components need to have some kind of weight that you can put into your data crunching calculations, so that you can actually later estimate shipping expenses and how to organize the shipments, etc. You should measure stuff for pretty much the same reason. We'll go into each one of these points a bit later, and plan for the least amount of packages. And the last thing is investigate all your shipping options. So let's dig into each one of these 5 points. Why you should charge shipping expenses after the campaign. First of all, there are less surprises. If you take a bit more time, you might have the chance to figure out in a better way what is the weight of your goods. And there's another thing that over time rates can change. For example, if another pandemic happens, the rates could change dramatically. So if you charge them many months in advance compared to when you're planning to do the shipment, you might have undercharged quite a bit. So the closer you can get to the shipment moment, the better it is. Of course, there are limits. I myself also don't ever manage to get so close to the shipping. At some point, I have to charge those expenses, and I have to make the best guess I can. But I always try to take at least 1 or 2 extra months after the campaign is over to think about it, to see how things are developing, and make the best possible guess. Of course, one reason to wait is that you might find a better deal compared to what you had time to research before the campaign. It's not that common. You should actually do your research before, but it might happen. The third point is something that probably who backs a lot of Kickstarter campaigns don't want to hear, but you can make your rewards look cheaper, because basically you're splitting the payment between paying for the goods and paying for the shipment. A lot of people hate paying for the shipment, and I understand why. Like, nobody really likes it. But if you split it in 2 parts, it feels cheaper. It feels like, okay, I can afford this part now, and maybe in 3 months when they will ask me $20 for the shipment, it wouldn't seem such a big deal. So that's an uncomfortable truth, but something you need to take into account. Why you should estimate weights as precisely as possible? Well, first of all, most of the shipments will be charged by weight. So according to how much weight you're sending around, that's pretty much your baseline price for shipping. Of course, as I mentioned, you should make it as close as possible to the real thing. The way I do it is that I take other games that I think will represent my final game quite well, quite close, and I take out the scale and I start weighting stuff until I get as close as possible to the real thing. Of course, if you have to make an estimate, try to overestimate always a bit. Not only that the weight will be a little higher, but if the weight falls between some range of prices, always go with the higher one, because most likely that's the one you're gonna have to pay. Why I'm telling you that you should measure stuff, same reason. Not only you're gonna pay by weight, but also by size. If you send something that packages that are really big, for sure you can be sure that they will make you pay for it. Also, when you're planning the shipment, you need to think about not only a single package, but what if you have to send hundreds of packages? Exactly how are they gonna be packed together? And the most common way is that they're gonna be stacked in pallet, which are these kind of wooden platforms, and you stack stuff on them, and then they're shrink wrapped, and if you have a lot of them, they're put into a container. Of course, there is a physical limit on how much stuff you can put on a single pallet, and you need to figure that out with your shipment solution. I don't think there's a standard. But of course, you need to make it so that you don't end up having more pallets than you want, because of course you're going to pay for pallets not only for shipping them, but also for storage space. So if you have to leave them there for, 1 month waiting, because they need to wait for another item that is not included in the packages yet, you will pay for the amount of pallets and space you're gonna occupy in some storage room somewhere. So that's also why you should have an idea of how big each package is gonna be. Another good reason is that you need to figure out what kind of box you need to send the stuff in a way that it doesn't get damaged. If you work with shipment partners, they probably will suggest one. When we send games from our store, we made several experiments. Some cheaper packages, they're cheaper, but our experience has been that cheaper packages are usually fine when you send them one by one. But when you send them like 300s at the time, they're not a good choice, because what happens is that they get stacked in the trucks of the delivery company you're using, and they tend to explode. So if you have a lot of stuff to send, I would recommend spending a bit more on packaging. It's annoying. It's basically wasted money when you think about it. Okay, I'm paying for carton, but it's not wasted money, because then you don't have customers complaining or telling you, hey, these arrived damaged, I want a new one. So consider that. And then you should plan for the least amount of packages. If possible, send everything in a single package. Why? First of all, there's a baseline cost per package. So it doesn't matter if the second package is really small, you usually pay a baseline price for that second package. And this can make your expenses go up very quickly. The second thing is that shipment of games is such a massive effort. Even on a small scale, you might have to take days off work to get it done if you're doing it yourself. I'm pretty sure you will have to. It's not a possibility. It's something you will have to do. So if you can do it all at once, it's much better than having to do it in several installments. Plus, every time you make a shipment wave, you have to pay again. So it is much more convenient to send a bigger package that weighs more than sending two smaller packages of the same total weight. And this is super important, because if you end up miscalculating the amount of shipment waves that you need, it is very, very, very likely that you will lose 10 to 20% of your margin. And often the margin that you have on this stuff is not much higher than that. So you basically would lose all your profit. Be extremely careful with the calculation when you do this. You don't want to send more waves of packages than you absolutely have to. The last thing is you should investigate your shipping options. Why? First of all, there's a substantial difference in services, and some of the best ones are not the most obvious. Shipping internationally, depending on where you're based, can really destroy your budget if you do not have a trusted partner that can take care of it for you. And also, it can make some of your rewards unreasonable to buy if you don't have a solution in place. One example that I can give you is that in the latest campaign we run at the moment when I'm recording this, Broken Tales, I had to reach a certain amount of packages of orders that would go to US and Canada, because below that threshold I would pay a certain amount per package, and over that threshold we could change the way these packages are shipped, making them much cheaper, not only for me but for the backers. And that in turn makes more backers want to back, because if you are asking $20 for a shipment is different than when you're asking 12. Of course, there's $8 difference, and that can push a lot of people to back for your project if you can reach that threshold. This stuff is complicated, so you need to make some calculations. Yeah, another thing that you should consider is that if you choose a partner, you should ask them if they have hubs in some specific territories. What is a hub? A hub is, as I mentioned in the previous example, after a certain threshold, we could send a single pallet of packages, probably it's going to be more, to a place called a hub. And from there, so they receive a single shipment, and from there, they're going to do the local delivery. Otherwise, what happens is that every single package goes to a different destination directly from the source. In this case, for our case, is probably UK. So from UK, I have to send to 1,000 destinations in the US. And on the other hand, you send to a single destination in the US. And then from there, the packages go to their final destination. It's very different when it comes to pricing. So that's a question you should ask to your partners. And well, the last thing is that these people that you are going to work with, they probably have a lot of experience in shipping stuff. At least that's the point of their service. So they might have ideas on and give you suggestions on how to pack stuff together so it's more efficient. Because this thing is basically playing Tetris with packages, and it's not always super obvious how to do it in the best possible way. So if you have a good partner, they will counsel you well, hopefully. Then what happens if you have digital items to distribute? The first question you need to ask yourself is that, are you worried that people that haven't backed for your campaign will access the files or the codes you're distributing, just getting your stuff for free? So if the answer is yes, I think the best option at the moment are BackerKit, that allows you to, well, it's a pledge manager, we will talk about it later, but it also allows you to distribute files digitally to people that have purchased specific things. So you can pick, like, send this file to all the people that have purchased all this thing, and they paid all their fees. Okay, so that's probably the most efficient option when you want to keep things private. The other option a lot of game makers use, especially for RPG games, this drive-through RPG is not very useful for people who make board games, is drive-through RPG, which is this kind of marketplace where you upload your files, and then you can generate some codes to send to the backers, and through that code they can redeem the game they purchase for free. An alternative to drive-through RPG that some people are using is itch.io. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but in my opinion, it's a bit more on the indie side of things. So, well, that's something you can consider, but it's pretty much equivalent to drive-through RPG in the way it works. If you're not worried about people accessing the files of the stuff that they funded, then I think you could consider something like Dropbox or Google Drive. Though, that if that URL is shared somewhere, people that have no right to the files will be able to access. One thing you need to consider is that if you use digital platforms to distribute stuff, it will impact your expenses. On BackerKit, well, the calculation here is very complicated, because BackerKit is not only a way to distribute files, it's a way to handle all your backers, including their orders, the shipment, making them paying fee, add add-ons to their order. So the easiest way for you to figure out how much it's going to cost you to use BackerKit is to use the calculator they have on their website. They also change the pricing structure fairly often, so there's no point for me trying to catch up with them. Keep in mind that whatever you raise post-campaign, they do have a fee, and at the moment it is 3.5%. But that's not the only thing you're going to pay them. So just go to the calculator, and it really depends on how much your campaign has raised. a bit counterintuitively, in my opinion, is that the more your campaign raise, the less in proportion you're going to pay them. I would imagine that it would make sense more the other way around, especially for smaller game makers, but that's the way they work at the moment. Drive-thru RPG is free to use, but every time you have a sale on their platform, they take 30 to 35% of the price. However, if you're distributing files for free, they don't take anything, so that's a good thing. Dropbox, as well as Google Drive, they have monthly and yearly subscriptions. Here they also keep changing the pricing structure. You should see the website for updated pricing. If I have to give you a ballpark idea, you can imagine something between $100 and $200 for the standard option. Then there are various upgrades available, so you should check that better on their websites for a more updated pricing.